Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to see all of you here today, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar, Post-2024 General Elections and Indonesia 2045 Vision, Strategic Challenges and Opportunities. We have now come to the end of the election season in Indonesia, and it seems that Indonesians have overwhelmingly supported Prabowo Subianto, the current defense minister, to be Indonesia's next president. So we want to basically kick off this webinar by attempting to try to get to grips a little bit with the agendas that revolved around the election, but even going back further to when the incumbent administration launched the 2045 Golden Vision, which is basically a 20-year work plan envisaging how Indonesia will become a sovereign, developed, and sustainable state. And there are some very interesting dimensions associated with that vision that make it relevant for this webinar. The issue of Indonesia maintaining its free and active principle, a technocratic framework that outlines the importance of tough diplomacy to respond to the geopolitical dynamics in the Indo-Pacific. And of course, given the vulnerability of the archipelagic sea lanes and the volatility of regional hotspots, there seems to be a commitment to building a maritime-oriented, high-tech defense force with multi-domain operational capabilities, with some ability to deter belligerents who attempt to attack or destabilize national security and peace in Southeast Asia. Additionally, we have the statements made by the president-elect, Mr. Prabowo Subianto, envisaging a developed nation and the need to promote smart diplomacy and optimal essential forces to ensure national integrity. Prabowo Subianto did highlight his commitment to the Global Maritime Fulcrum, concept popularized in the first term of the Joko Widodo administration. So what we want to do in this seminar is to basically try to get to grips and to try to understand a little bit about the strategic thinking behind the 2045 Golden Vision, identify the key objectives of the incoming administration, analyze the impact of emerging global disruptions on Indonesia's long-term development vision, and explore in what ways Indonesian policymakers may overcome crucial regional problems, evolving security threats, and understand also how they intend to position Indonesia in the international realm. And to do so, we have two really wonderful speakers, both friends of mine, Ibu Edna Caroline, who is a journalist at the Kompas Daily newspaper and co-founder of Indonesia Strategic and Defense Studies, ISDS, a research group focusing on Indonesia's strategy and defense issues. And Professor Johannes Sulaiman, who is an associate professor at Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani at Cimahi, Indonesia. And he's also a non-resident fellow at the National Bureau of Asian Research, NBR, in the US. Let me now yield the floor to Professor Johannes Sulaiman, who will start off our webinar. Pak Johannes, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Pak Leonard, and for inviting me to this wonderful webinar. And thank you again to everyone for being here. I hope you will enjoy my presentation. And usually people come to my presentation because they think that it is funny. So hopefully today will be kind of funny. Yes. But basically, I'm going to talk today is more of like a strategic challenges and opportunity for Indonesia. Basically, I was asked to bring some understanding like what Indonesia 2045 vision, and then in order to achieve it, and basically what Indonesia's short-term and long-term strategic challenges, especially under public administration, and what is Indonesia's strategy to oppose or to overcome those short-term and long-term strategic challenges. And so now I'm going to bore you a bit by stating kind of the obvious, like what Indonesia 2045 vision. Basically, it is based on the notes that Jokowi jotted, and then he said to the Bapanas, hey, try to build something based on what I wrote, and things like that. I mean, actually, you know, former president before Jokowi also already made some sort of like thinking about like what's the 2045 vision, but under President Joko Widodo, it is the first time we see it in its glory, basically. Like we want to strengthen human resources, whose intelligence outperform from other nations. Indonesia's people uphold pluralism, center of education, technology, world civilization, society, government apparatus free from corruption. I mean, if you think about I mean, I don't think anybody will write a vision saying that, hey, yeah, we want a stupid people, we want like full corruption. I mean, of course, it is kind of like actually kind of no-brainer. I mean, and then in equitable infrastructure development, Indonesia is independent, free country, and a benchmark of world economic growth. Basically, all the vanilla. But but and then you look at the sources. It is actually some of. I mean, I just leave it from the Wikipedia because I'm not going to be bothered to translate it anyway. So, but if you want to, but for the security, for the terms of our talk today, which is mostly on the security vision, basically, the goal is the speed up the fulfillment of the minimum essential force, increasing capability of defense industry, high capability on operating military and paramilitary operation other than war, and in facing threats from the digital era. And I'm also adding one line here, which is like Indonesia as one of the most influential countries in the region, which I think is kind of like fit with the entire theme. But but regardless of the security part of the vision, basically it all boils down to economy. Presidents since the fall of Sukarno have basically put their legitimacy based on economy, because that's what one of the main reasons why Suharto said that we need to get rid of Sukarno, because Sukarno managed the economy badly. I mean, you've got like long lines of people queuing for oil, for rice, and for whatever else. And so Suharto said that look, Sukarno may be our founding father. He may bring us freedom, but he doesn't care about your well-being. So I'm here. I'm going to put this new order that basically gives you all bread and circuses, as long as you just do nothing to oppose me. But basically, since then, every single president of Indonesia put their legitimacy on economic growth. And as a result, of course, this leads to problems such as in their foreign policy. Basically, we don't like to make difficult choices, such as in South China Sea, because we fear it will impair in the economy. It will cause problems. It will make the investor nervous because there are conflicts, and yada yada yada. Basically, so economy is always the gist, the core of the 2045 vision. But of course, the question is like, while we are talking about economy, but we cannot simply ignore the security challenges, the strategic challenges. Basically, we have the global economic downturn, thanks to COVID and thanks to Russian invasion on Ukraine. And we also got the global regional tension. China, I don't think we have to elaborate it further because you all already know. I mean, I expect that people coming in the answer, so I don't really need to deal further this. But of course, one biggest question that Prabowo administration we have to face, especially in November, is what if Trump wins, or at least if the Republicans keeps the House or take over the Senate. I mean, I don't have beef with normal Republicans. Okay, I like them. I have lots of Republican friends. I mean, oh, Shadow, everybody will like, oh my God, time to turn off the Zoom. I like Mitch McConnell, regardless like how much you dislike him. I think he's really nice guy, but I just cannot stand the so-called freedom caucus. I mean, like Johnson, I think he got no guts. Okay, he got no spine, and and Gates is basically like, I mean, he's basically like a Russian shield. I mean, and I don't know like what kind of idiots are voting I mean, for him. So I mean, and just bring a huge uncertainty here. I mean, if basically Viktor Orban would go to Florida and met Trump, and then Trump you say like, look, I'm going to hand Ukraine to Putin on a silver platter. I mean, you cannot. I mean, it's kind of hard to. I mean, to look at the good point to what happened in Ukraine, and when Trump back in the office in January. And of course, that will also bring into the question like, what will United States do in Asia? Will it still honor its promises to defend Taiwan, or could Indonesia can still think that we can still rely on United States help? So what hits the fan in South China Sea. So there is like this huge unpredictability that Indonesia will face actually in November, and well, in January when Trump hits the office, and that makes many people, well, including me actually, quite nervous about like the positive, because we have now a very uncertain global region, I mean global situation, and under a very unpredictable president also in Indonesia, Prabowo. And of course, we also have the internal problems that Prabowo will face in the next 5 years, the democratic decline. I mean, Marcos Misner and all his pals in ANU and Wilson already screamed like all the problems with democratic decline in Indonesia. And of course, we got corruption, rule of law problems. I mean, and then of course the biggest question is whether President Jokowi could still maintain his influence. I don't think he maintained his former influence later in October after he left the office. But of course, he still have the popularity that he can count on, and popularity, while it is a slender reed to lean on, it is still some sort of power. And especially if he's able to leverage his popularity into leadership in Golkar, which is the second largest political party in Indonesia. And of course, the question is like, what will happen then with the AKN? Whether Prabowo will pursue it, will keep maintaining it, regardless the fact that it may bankrupt the entire budget in the next 2 years or 3 years. I don't know. And not to mention the fact that Indonesia really needs a massive military spending, because if we really want to, to achieve this minimization of forces, which at now we'll talk later in her part, I mean, before I bore you too much. We do need lots and lots of money, something that Sri Mulyani, the current finance minister, has been fighting for both tooth and nail. And the problem is, of course, who will Prabowo choose as Sri Mulyani's eventual successor in 2024? That was really the problem. So for the next 5 years, we are actually facing a very, very problematic situation, both internally and externally. And of course, what Indonesia's strategy? I mean, aside of maybe like this, I guess. I mean, I said maybe like this. Then because there seems to be like the director of many people who I keep talking to. I mean, when they face when they are asking like what will we do in the next 5 years, and they basically are screaming and like this basically. I mean, they keep saying that life imitates fiction, and this really happens. But of course, the question that we have to ask is how much Prabowo is thinking about his own legacy and comparison that people will inevitably make with his widely popular and seen as a very successful predecessor. And keep in mind that Prabowo, even today, well, we still have this reputation of very unpredictability. He's a very impulsive. He basically shoots from the hips. He talks whatever on his mind, even though it may cause panic. So I mean, that's the way he is. Of course, I mean, some people try to make an argument, which I kind of agree. Like he's kind of changing. He's becoming more calculating. I mean, in the past 5 years, and then of course the question is whether he realized that this will be maybe his last term. I mean, his first and his last term, because he's old. I mean, and then as we all know, presidency tends to make people grow very older due to the stress of the office. And then of course the question is like how much Prabowo is willing to spend on the military, whether he will say that he will maintain the argument that hey, yeah, we have to be like the most powerful country, and then we spend more on guns, or we will stick on the economic discipline on the expense of the military spending. But of course, I mean, now here I'm giving you two predictions, okay? And then, I mean, this is the thing that I think mostly will happen because by default, even though many people think that I'm pessimistic, I'm actually quite optimistic because I just don't like to see like things go badly, basically. But basically, Prabowo was here, and there are many people that I know that knows him make an argument that he really understands that this may be his first and his last term. He knows his mortality. He's pretty much sick. If you look at his debate, his performance in the three debates, in the three presidential debates, and his acceptance speech, his victory speech, he was like wooden. It is like way different than his performance in 5 years ago when he was debating Jokowi Widodo in the 2019 presidential election. It was like a different persona. He's old, he's sick. So so thinking about that, he may want to leave a legacy saying that, look, people may have a very low expectation on me. People may think that I'm really, really bad guy, but I will beat everybody's expectation. I will focus on economic growth, internal reforms. I'm not going to mess up with democracy because democracy is the thing that will bring economic stability, and market will react very negatively to the side that Indonesia will abandon its democracy or Prabowo will just behave erratically. So, and there are many lessons that he can look from Myanmar. Myanmar is kind of funny actually. When the coups happened 2 years ago, oh my God, it's a long time ago. Well, there are people who talking to Indonesian military, telling them to go to Myanmar because you are a fellow military. Then you may, so they may know you better. They may listen to you because you are fellow officers. Some Indonesian personnel went to went to Myanmar and then telling the Napidao to just why don't you just give concession to the civilians? Why don't you stop the coup and then they'll just go back to normal? And the Napidao retorted back like, what kind of idiots are you? Like you are having power in Indonesia for like 30 years and you gave up to the civilians and now you are like the second rank citizen. And the military come back and say, hey, the Myanmar military leaders are right. And I would be like, what the hell are you thinking about? But of course, now what happened in Myanmar and with the military dictatorship was under attack, on defense, being hit from multiple fronts. Now people start to think that, maybe military coup is not a good idea. Maybe moving into authoritarianism is not a good idea because it will spook the market, it will isolate you, it will cause more problems. So it is not really a good idea for Indonesia to behave erratically like Myanmar. But at the same time, the biggest question is what will happen in South China Sea. I think So China behave aggressively, more aggressively than usual in South China Sea, such as like what it's keep pulling to the Philippines. It can expect a very, very forceful retaliation from Prabowo, because he really built his entire foreign policy based on the fact that he's a strongman, that he knows what's best for Indonesia, and he really, willing to defend Indonesia's honor and dignity. So in foreign policy, in security, I would make an argument that he will most likely continue. There will be a continuity between the previous, not the previous, the Yudhoyono administration to today. He will be far more active than Jokowi, who is very infamous for not willing to go to international meetings. And for the plus sign for the decision makers in Westminster, in Washington, in Canberra, is Prabowo in general is actually far more sympathetic to the Western powers compared to China. He has a background of being educated there. He really enjoys. He really likes. The militaries, and he really understands that. That they are not going to provoke Indonesia militarily, and they will be willing to help Indonesia. So he has a huge respect on it. But at the same time, the limitation is that cannot expect a decisive break. They cannot expect a decisive break from the current defense policy that Prabowo made. That Indonesia have, such as Indonesia's distrust of alliances in general. There won't be a situation where on the first day in this office, Prabowo said, "Yeah, I'm going to join Quad. I'm going to join AUKUS." There will be like a new block in town called AUKUSI or whatever. You can sketch that from things that will happen, because of course there is always a fear, especially from Indonesia, that we don't want to get dragged into alliances. But of course, the second biggest question that we will have here is the economic consideration, like how much United States is willing to match China. If they really want Prabowo to jump or to move closer to the Western side, then they have to willing to be spending more money. They have to be willing to spend more money to match China. And unfortunately, under the current dysfunctional Republican Congress, I don't think that will happen. If Mitt Romney and like I said, McConnell may still have the grip on power, then maybe the old Republican Congress will be more than willing to match China, to fight China too. But I don't trust the current so-called Freedom Caucus Congress. They are spineless basically. They are a bunch of Putin esquissers. And of course, the second prediction is the pessimism. Like, what will happen if Prabowo actually behaves like what we think he will do? He will have a very nationalistic and megalomaniac president that will focus mostly on security and defense, because again, what's important is to make sure that Indonesia is respected and feared. Remember what Machiavelli is saying. You cannot be loved and feared at the same time. You have to choose one. You have to pick one. So you will have an over-ambitious president. He will try to postulate his power with his inner cycle, actually keep pushing him for maybe you have to run again for the second term. So I don't think this will start the end of Indonesian democracy. I don't buy the argument that he will just steamroll Indonesian democracy. He's not that dumb, okay? But the problem is, it will keep hurting. It will further hurt the quality of Indonesian democracy, and that's the problem. And foreign policy-wise, the biggest fear is whether he will bite more than he can chew, because he will react to everything that's slide very aggressively, like what happened in the discussion in the CSIS a few months ago, when he was asked by the Japanese ambassador, like, what your policy will be, and he basically lashed out at European Union ambassador, saying that they are evil by shutting Indonesian palm oil export, and everybody in the room like what? But this is a possibility, and we are really hope that that inner circle can rein him down. And as we will see, maybe a time like unpredictability that I mean that it is kind of a big question, like how much the professionals could rein the mercurial president. Okay, I think I already speak more than I'm allotted to. My apologies to the organizer, and thank you very much for listening. And I think you will now listen to much better presentation than me by Edna. Thank you very much for your opportunity.
Thank you, Pak Johannes. Great presentation. Always value your insights and the clarity of your thought. We now invite Ibu Edna to share her insights on this important subject. Ibu Edna, please.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Leonard and Adi for inviting me to contribute to this event. My hope is that my presentation today will stimulate an engaging discussion, especially after my friend Professor Johannes Sulaiman also already present a very interesting points. This is so my presentation will be Indonesia endeavor and navigating challenges as a middle power. So as conveyed in various literature, Indonesia is often referred as an emerging middle power. Despite resources limitation, Indonesia undoubtedly seeks to advocate for its national interests and exert influence at the global level. Moreover, over the past decade, there have been dynamics in Asia-Pacific regions which also bring challenges and opportunities. Despite further success such as ASEAN chairmanship in last year, Indonesia has yet to successfully push its agenda such as the Global Maritime Forum. Economically, Indonesia's GDP is still largely supported by extractive industries as it has been for decades. So there's no many development. The quality of human resources remains low and industrial development has been stagnant. Even more recently, there has been a regression in democracy. The question is why? In my opinion, the main issue lies within the system itself. Following the political reformation in 1998, there was an incomplete structural reform leads to a system that is not institutionalized. The momentum for change faded away, failing to create institutions and regulation that are both stable yet effective and efficient, capable of addressing the myriad of issues within a country as vast as Indonesia. Sudden application of liberal democracy has also created uncertainties due to the leap from feudal and communal civilization to individualism. Ultimately, policies depend on leaders at various levels. The problem is every leader has term limitation and there's still a strong feudal culture, so individual interests often become the primary consideration. Amid a system with minimal transparency and politicization across various sectors. So the result, of course, there have been various advancements. However, these advancements are hindered by those factors. It's like a car moving forward with several burdens dragging behind it. Next, I will present various examples in the field of defense and security. This sector is particularly interesting as it can be considered the most advanced structural reform after 1998. So the minimum action force is a long-term program made by President Yudhoyono 2009 and consists of three 5-year phases until 2024, which have been planned and executed previously. In the Indonesian democratic system, the Ministry of Defense is responsible for formulating defense policy, which may change according to developments in the strategic environment. However, issue arise when Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto suddenly released a list of arms procurement without any prior existing MAF evaluation or even discussion with the TNI. This has even led to discussion in the parliament formal session where TNA commander requested the parliament to advise the minister to not act unilaterally. So it's very interesting. Previously, regarding the KFX fighter jet program with Korea, Minister of Defense Riyamizat Triakudu also suddenly decided to disregard the collaborative program for the development of fighter jet. He mentioned that there was an allocation of fund for this project, but the process was delayed. As a result, despite having spent around 20 trillion rupiah, Indonesia lagged behind in the design on construction process, failing to achieve the initial goal to acquiring the capability and technology to build a 4.5 generation fighter jet. And then also in organization, there are also inconsistency and interesting phenomena occurring within the TNI organization. There was a fairly significant organizational change when the president regulation altered the organizational structure of the army, TNI AD, which was overhauled within just 3 years. So there was a new position for 239 senior army officers in February 2020, but only in 3 years the 121 senior officer position were dismissed. So it's like no plan or no comprehensive plan at all. Also in merit system, there is a problematic merit system. It's also contribute to demotivation and unhealthy competition among officers, especially in the army, but also in Air Force and Navy, as they observe that personal closeness to politicians can sometimes accelerate career advancement more than military professionalism. So this is the example in defense and security sector about the problem with the institutionalized system. On the other hand, there have been several developments. The National Resource Management for Defense Law allow the Ministry of Defense to better integrate civilian capabilities into national defense power. There have also been significant procurements of advanced weaponry system, as well as advancement in defense industry. Additionally, there's an emphasis on human resources, such as the expansion of National Defense University, which produce graduates in fields related to dual civil military functions, such as chemistry and biology classes. And then, the as Adi requests for what is the reminders, as Professor Johannes said before, the MRF is not fulfilled yet, only 65%. But it reflects that the development of TNI strength remains minimal. For almost 25 years, Indonesia defense budget has been only 0.8% of GDP. So it's not only, so even though the situation, the geopolitical dynamics happens in the region, the number of defense budget is still the same. Moreover, more than half of this budget is allocated to routine expenses such as salaries. Meanwhile, in the region, all countries are bolstering their capabilities. This result is in an increase in quantity, albeit with low quality. Additionally, the demand for defense industry development leads to poor quality equipment, sometimes with fatal consequences such as tilting ships. The lack of national security architecture exacerbates overlaps in various fields, such as domestic security and maritime security, leading not only to inefficiency in operation, but also to conflicts among security actors. What will happen next? Especially with Prabowo Subianto, a former military figure, is phenomenal in many aspects, as Professor Johannes present before. So, but there are aspects that remain unchanged while others evolve. For instance, referring to MOD paper on strategi pertahanan, defense strategy, June 2022, it continues to prioritize non-traditional threat perception. Although the potential for conventional warfare is mentioned in the uh, uh, South China Sea, but the internal security issue remain more dominant, representing a low threat strategic environment perception. And then but also maybe this is only add some things before to Professor Johannes' presentation, but Prabowo already mentioned that he will have this good neighbor policy. This is his speech in RSIS November 2000. It is in campaign time. We need a peaceful atmosphere. We need a mutually beneficial atmosphere. We need our economy to be good. So I think this is in line with Professor Johannes said before. Indonesia acknowledged that its high ambition on global stage are not matched by an ability to exert significant influence. Therefore, Indonesia will tend to pursue multilateral solution to international problem and adopt compromise position in international dispute. This is a very interesting example. ASEX Indonesia initiative in last year, and very supported by Singapore Armed Forces. So the two countries cooperate very good to gather all ASEAN country military to join this exercise. It conduct in Natuna Water, even though it's only in the southern part. So it didn't provoke anything, hopefully. And if we see the order of battle in the exercise, it's only very soft and emphasizing in HIDR. So the objective is to communicate each other. I mean, between the ASEAN military forces. But this is very important because this is the first all ASEAN military exercise, and the title is promoting regional peace and stability through ASEAN military cooperation. However, so the most difference is the new president, Prabowo Subianto, who possess more reference and insights politics. He also more adept in diplomacy compared to Joko Widodo. Therefore, my estimation is that the future government will utilize geopolitical leverage more towards various countries such as the US, China, and European to strengthen its internal capability, particularly in human resources, as mentioned before in Indonesia 2045. The first point is human resources development, and other agendas such as defense technology, and we also need to protect UNCLOS. And there are economy interests such as CPO and need for investment for the new capital. So even though there will be no main changes in Prabowo bebas active policy, but I think he will engage more. So, and also on the other side, the US allies such as Japan, Australia, Singapore, and NATO in the region, they also want to engage more. For example, Australia right now is in the middle of talking about the new DCA, Defense Cooperation Agreement between Australia and Indonesia. And 2 weeks ago, the Minister of Defense of Australia came and he said that he want to engage more. This is very understandable because in Australia White Defense Paper we can see that Australia perceive Indonesia as the shield toward China as their enemy in the north. So engaging with Indonesia is a very strategic needs for Australia, and I think Indonesia will use that to as a leverage to Indonesia interests. But there will also some discussion and of course there are some limits. For example, if Australia asks to have military facilities inside Indonesia territory or even in EEZ, so I don't think it's going to be a yes. Not only I don't think it's going to be a yes from Indonesia side. And also Indonesia will be engaged more with China in economy, of course, because we need investment and financial resources. But also, I think we don't be surprised that maybe in the future that Indonesia will have more cooperation in weaponry procurement and also defense technology cooperation, because China provide very cheap. I mean, compared to European weaponry, they provide cheap weaponry, even the strategic ones, and and Indonesia will use it as a leverage also uh, towards our European partner, because probably China already have a very advanced military technology right now, and Indonesia expect to gain, not of course not the most advanced one, but the middle and lower level is fine for us, because we need to advance our defense industry and technology. And also with ASEAN, because as I mentioned before, Prabowo realized that Indonesia is not strong as to become dominant actor. So of course we're going to engage ASEAN, and then the national interest is human resources as well. So there will be some cooperation in this aspect. So I think thank you very much. In Indonesia, we now become more, even though the TNI is now more, maybe I don't know, but they are more like inward looking, especially since they're going to build new 22 territorial Kodam as addition to 15, but we are more like the Indonesian people. We are more like more alert to political advancement. So like next week, ESDS is going to have to release our survey about the how the Indonesian perceive the conflict in South China Sea. Especially the main question is who is our friend and foe in this South China Sea. I think I also I'm also exceed the time. So thank you for me, and I'm open for any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibu Edna. Great presentation. You didn't exceed the time. Don't worry. We're delighted to learn from you and benefit from your insights, just as we were with Pak Johannes. Yeah, we are picking up a few questions here. Let me first, share the question raised by Ignatius. Hi, Ignatius. Nice that you are with us this morning. Now, Ignatius wants to know a little bit about the Jokowi Prabowo alliance. Whether both of you foresee any possible breaks that may occur, and how will that impact Indonesia's domestic politics, economy, and foreign policy? Who would like to take this question? Maybe we let Ibu Edna take a break a little bit since you just finished your presentation. Pak Johannes, please.
Okay, it is kind of interesting question because that's what we actually have been thinking for the past couple of minutes. Basically, I think there will be a break. Both people has a very strong ego. Both people basically wants to keep influencing the situation. But the problem is, of course, for Jokowi is he's no longer president, and for Prabowo he's now got the power. He has no obligation at all to follow Jokowi, and Jokowi understands it. That's one of the main reasons why there are lots of rumors in the past couple of days that Jokowi has been approaching Golkar and hoping that he may play a leading role in Golkar, so giving him some leverage. But by the end of the day, I don't think that will happen. That will really matter because Indonesian president has a lot of power, bigger than the parliament, and Gibran, Jokowi's son and Prabowo's vice president, role is also very limited depending on how much Jokowi is willing to give. How much of Prabowo is willing to give power to Gibran. So of course, it is a recipe for clash. So I would make a prediction that of course, often my prediction is wrong. so don't bet your money on my prediction here. But my prediction is by next year there will be a split within them. Not now, because Prabowo really needs to make sure that the economy is still running smoothly. I mean, if you got a direct open split in November, I think the stock market will crash. So I think they are both smart enough to play on their defense. But once everything settles down, I think that's why I say that a year, then you can start to see open bridge, especially if Jokowi thinks that Prabowo doesn't give him or his son basically any power, that Prabowo is turning off from his advice or whatever. So I think that I think the bridge, the split will happen, and of course the question is not if but when. But that's my opinion.
But Edna, do you agree? The potential of the split happening in November next year?
I really cannot answer the question, and the question is asking everywhere among the elites in Jakarta. But I must emphasize here that Jokowi is Javanese Machiavellis, so he can do anything. And on the other hand, regardless of many people say about Prabowo, he's kind of a person who have ethics to some extent. And we will see a very interesting twist, I think. And then and we also and someone close to Prabowo told me before, I mean like 2 years ago that or 1 years ago that I asked him why is Prabowo is very accommodated to Jokowi. There was no election at that time. But the person which is like senior to Prabowo in the military said that Prabowo even do not always say yes to Suharto, which is his father-in-law. But to some extent, I agree with Professor Johannes that maybe in 1 or 2 years there will be a split between them because I don't know, the power is already in Prabowo hands, and the problem with Jokowi is that he attacked too many elites with using law as a political weapon. So it's good. I mean, the elites they are I think they are waiting, but on the other hand, Prabowo has a certain level of ethics also, and he's more ethical than Jokowi, so I don't know. It's going to be his personal decision.
So interesting. Back in 2014, Pak Jokowi was presented to us as a liberal Democrat. Now he is a Javanese Machiavelli. Well, let we fortunately we can move on also to zero in more on the Prabowo administration. I mean, Jokowi's role will be interesting in it. But I think one interesting element is the fact that Prabowo is an old general. So the question from Po Yi is interesting, primarily because of the obvious question that we should ask about the role of the TNI under a Prabowo presidency. Do we see a return back to the Suharto era? There's some interesting things developing, though, in terms of the expansion of the Kodam and issues like that. What are the possibilities? Ibu Edna, would you like to go first?
Okay, thank you. I think there will be rising in military involvement in politics and everyday government. There already a regulation that going to be published maybe next week about the how the about the steps for TNI active officers to enter the civilian bureaucrats. And even though Prabowo is a military general, and of course we perceive him as a Orde Baru general, which is identic with Dwi Fungsi ABRI. But I would like to emphasize that the process is not because of Prabowo himself, but the involvement of military to political and bureaucracy was already started by Jokowi. So this is not only because of personal interest, but also because the weakness of civil society in Indonesia. And as I mentioned in my presentation, the change in 1998 is not institutionalized. So we already move forward, but the system is not very strong. So it depends on personal policy or personal decision. So we have a very weak system. So I think even though there are no chance to TNI to be back as ABRI, and of course we are lucky because there are threat in South China Sea, so the TNI have to consider that as well. But the TNI will be more dominant, at least compared to 5 years ago, because they already see that the civilian society is very weak. That's why I become friend with Professor Johannes, so we will have a stronger network. Okay.
Pak Johannes,
I thought you are friends because because you like me. I mean, not because you want to use me. But okay, but joke aside, first of all, there won't be any ABRI, I think, because there's no way in hell the police force will be willing under the military. I mean, 30 years of them under the military's foot, I mean, makes the police really, really hate the military. So, so there's no, but now the serious answer. I'm kind of mildly optimistic on this. In the sense, like, when you look at the numbers of like opening the military officers going to be in the civilian bureaucracy, I think it is less of the military wanting to get involved in the civilian bureaucracy, rather than the fact that the government simply doesn't know where to put all those extra officers. I think at now government can elaborate on this more, but we have a huge surplus officer in the Indonesian military. I think last count is like 1,000 unemployed colonels, I think. Or maybe the number is, I mean, I don't remember on top of my head, but basically there are just a lot of them. And we need places to put them. And that's why we have this regulation saying that they can be put in the civilian bureaucracy, but not as the leader. And honestly, I think it for the military perspective, it will be less of a promotion than a demotion. Because they will be put under the civilian leadership, and that's kind of looking bad actually to the career. I mean, that's my feeling about this. So on one hand, we should not look at this too critically, but on the other hand, I mean, I agree with what Edna said about the weakness in civilian itself. I mean, the military look at the civilian and they look at how ineffective they are. And that's also one of the main reasons why Jokowi has been including the military to the bureaucracy, because the military get everything done quickly, while the civilian is seen as like glittering, like lunatic. And of course, for Prabowo, I mean, it will be like the easiest when like the lowest hanging fruit to use. If he really wants to get things done, he can just tell the military to do whatever for the infrastructure projects he wants to do, because he will get it faster than these three civilians. So whether the military whether Pablo will use the military more under his administration, I think he will. But whether they will be in power, I don't think so. Because, first of all, the military itself is not a monolithic institution where they all like Prabowo. They don't. And second, I think the military is smart enough to understand that if they influence civilians too much, then they will also get open back to all the criticism. I mean, until now, there are very few people willing to criticize the military. Because the military has been staying on their side. They are not interfering at all to the civilian. And when the military get involved in civilian, that will basically open them again to the criticism. And so I'm kind of cautiously optimistic on this. Not that I'm going to say that this is like a positive trend. I don't think so. Like I said, I'm really worried about the rapidly inefficient civilian bureaucracy. But at the same time, we have to be a little bit more cautious in kind of making a kind of acquisition that, look, I mean, we are going back to Suharto's era. I don't think either the military or the Prabowo is dumb enough to to make that kind of switch. Because like I said in presentation, I mean, they look at what happened to Myanmar and they don't like it.
Okay, thank you, Pak. Perhaps we could take some of the questions together. There is a question from Ika relating to ASEAN's position in Indonesian foreign policy. What do you both think about the direction Prabowo will give in terms of Indonesian foreign policy? Will he, Indonesia was inward looking during the Jokowi era. How different will this presidency be? And I think it would be good to take this question together with the question that was posed by Julia on the defense posture, and especially the role of Prabowo as in the defense realm, considering his incumbent position now as defense minister. Will he independently drive defense policy, not listening to the bureaucratic structure? I mean, you can also look at that in the context of the bureaucratic structure in the foreign ministry. Will he just take charge of foreign policy and chart his own course, considering his independent mindset? Ibu, would you like to go first?
Okay. Very interesting question, and we already saw how Prabowo act independently, even in foreign policy. For example, his speech in the Shangri-La dialogue last year was very controversial, and I tried to figure out whether who the man or team behind his speech, and apparently it is he himself. So he is very keen to geopolitical things, and in his campaign, like several months campaign, there are team regarding economy and environment and other things. But for geopolitical matters, he handle the team by himself, and he likes the subject, and he master it. And one of the team, I asked one of the team, and he said that he become a teacher to us in terms of geopolitical matters. So but as a president, he will have lots of inputs. But the problem is, well, I don't know, and I don't think the input will be the main consideration. He will have his own opinion about that. Even though, to answer the first question, he acknowledged that Indonesia power is not that high. So ASEAN is a very important institution for Indonesia to advance its national interests, especially about security in the region and Indonesia interests, such as UNCLOS. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Pak Yohanes, please.
This is a difficult question to answer, but one thing I think is sure. I mean, under Prabowo, ASEAN will remain a giant kopitiam. That for sure. But in foreign policy of Prabowo, I very much agree with what basically saying about Prabowo's. It's basically like thinking himself as the grand expert in strategy, in foreign policy. Basically, I mean, I think he will behave like Yudhoyono, in the sense like he will push what he wants, and he will face resistance from the foreign policy establishment, from the foreign ministry. and he will set up a parallel foreign policy in the secretariat, like what happened during Yudhoyono era, to bypass the foreign ministry. I think that will happen. Well, whether and of course, what this means to initial foreign policy. Well, honestly, the only thing that kind of make me make me a little bit, optimistic is the fact that, like Edna said, he really realized that Indonesia is not a great power, that he really need to watch what he's saying now that he is a president, and like what happened in Shangri-La, it was like backfired badly, and he knew that. And of course, back in Shangri-La, he thought that he had to reply because it was a discussion about Ukraine, and as a representative of Indonesia, he said that he had to talk, he had to say something. Otherwise, because Indonesia as a big country need to have its voice heard. And of course, as you all know, it ended up quite badly. But but here in this case, I don't think we will. But again, I don't think that this will translate into a very impulsive foreign policy from Prabowo. Like he suddenly saying that, oh, I'm going to go to Moscow and Kiev to become the peacemaker. If they don't agree, I'm going to declare war. I don't think he will pull things like that. I don't think he will pull things like Donald Trump did with Kim Jong Un. I think he's far more cautious than that. But at the same time, in terms of ASEAN, I can see him trying to chase ASEAN, but then after ASEAN simply impossible to change, then he will just give up. I think that will happen. And here I think it's a very great opportunity for Singapore to work together to try to influence Prabowo, because both Singapore and Indonesia, I think in this case Prabowo, has the same interest in making ASEAN becoming more relevant. So I think this is one of the best opportunity for Singapore to actually leverage its influence and its relationship with Prabowo to make changes. It might a very necessary change in ASEAN. But that's my feeling. But that's okay, especially when we are looking at Prabowo, who is willing to do something, quite maverick president compared to, unfortunately, Jokowi. Jokowi doesn't care about ASEAN.
Thank you, Pak. I note Raymond's question on governance. We'll come to that, but let's finish this round by touching on some of the other questions that relate to diplomacy and defense. There is a question from Alan regarding the normalization of relations between Indonesia and Israel. Is that a possibility? And what's your prognosis on Indonesia playing a role in facilitating a two-state solution? And there is additionally a question here relating to Indonesia's regional influence and how might that manifest itself from Penny. And of course, Kioni's question is an interesting one on the TNI personnel management policy that was promulgated in the Defense White Paper 2008. Perhaps you could sort of focus on these three particular questions before we look at governance issues. Perhaps Pak Johannes, you could start first.
Okay, start from where, because it's like a huge issue to tackle. But let's talk about the easiest answer, the Israel. There were talk actually when Abraham Accord was signed I think it is in 2019, right? Time's flies. That Indonesia was willing to especially the defense department is willing to push for Jokowi to also sign up also open recognition for for Israel. But apparently the foreign ministry totally refused. This kind of understandable because, as we all know, I mean, there are some connection, although it is not on the institutional basis, but from the personal basis between the people in the military and the Israelis. But foreign ministry is the one that vetoed the entire idea. And of course, the fact that Saudi Arabia hasn't signed the normalization at all with Israel, maybe it's basically impossible for Indonesia to open relationship with Israel because it really needs a big leap to do so. Unless it will cause a huge backlash domestically. And now with the Israel devastation on Gaza, unfortunately, I mean, I don't think there will be. I think there are very, very few people in Indonesia who's willing to entertain that because it is basically a political suicide. I mean, regardless of the fact that Hamas attacked first, I mean, people ignore it. People just look at what happened, like 30,000 civilians dead in Gaza, and Israel is to blame. So unfortunately, I don't think there will be a normalization between Indonesia and Israel because it is politically suicide. Unless, like I said, Netanyahu out, Israel maybe change the government into something more feasible. They sign up with they sign agreement with the Palestinians. Then Saudi gave them diplomatic recognition. Then yes, there will be enough fig leaf to allow Indonesia to open embassy in Tel Aviv. But other than that, I am really pessimistic. And whether Indonesia can push for two-state solution, that's also a question. Because I don't think at this point we have any leverage to do so. Because for Israel, I mean, they don't have anything to offer us. Well, we don't have anything to offer them. So maybe we can tell Israelis that look, if you push for the two-state solution, then yes, we will consider opening the embassy in Tel Aviv. But until then, I don't think I will see it, especially when Netanyahu is still in power. He's too toxic. He has to go. That's for Israeli side. I think I will give it to Edna first, and then maybe I think it should be like back and forth, or should I answer all of them first?
No, of course, answer what you feel you'd like to answer, definitely. Baidna, what are your views on some of these questions that have been raised?
Okay, about the 2008 TNI organization management, the zero growth thing, I don't think it will change in the near future because there are still problems with the number of generals and colonels in the TNI. But we have to also consider that there are now Bela Negara and Komcat. So there are some discussion inside the TNI to have more engagement with civilian experts, especially in several domains like cybersecurity. So even though there will be zero growth, but there will be some people come inside the TNI from the civilian side and cooperate or work together with the TNI. Interestingly, the problem right now is the number of, so if we see the structure is as a pyramid, so in the peak there are the number of officers is very high, but in the lowest part of the pyramid, there are lack or of number, especially in the so not many people would like to enter TNI now. I mean, especially compared to like 10 or 20 years ago. So yes, there are some problem with management in human resources inside the TNI. And it's also not only there not only in quantity problems, but also there are problems with quality. For example, in the military academy right now, the intake, the new students, they have weaker bones compared to like 10 or 20 years ago. I mean the new students, because the now especially in Java, there are not many forests. So the children who come to enter TNI, they are eating junk food. So 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 that's a very real problem. So now they also change the curriculum so they can adapt with the lack of quality about on the physical aspect of the new recruits. And about the how Indonesia will fulfill its defense posture, as by Bu Penny. So the main idea and long objective is to have our own technology from our defense industry. But the problem is we are lack of research and development culture. So how to adopt technology from our partners? That's why there is a undang-undang industri pertahanan. But as I mentioned in my presentation, so Prabowo, I think he will use the leverage because of Indonesia geopolitical aspect to have more bargaining position to countries that have defense technology and would like to share it with Indonesia. For example, uh, in one of his statements during debate in presidential campaign, he said that I'm the one who already have a contract for 11 billion dollars for the Indonesia defense industry. So he realized that it is very important for Indonesia armed forces to not always buy new technology. Of course, we cannot right now we cannot make like fighters jet, but the other technologies such as the more simple technology that's why he has a lots of cooperation with Turkey, because Turkey tends to open share the technology compared to like France or other European countries. So that's how in longer term we're going to have our defense posture. But for right now, I think this is my personal opinion. I don't know whether Johannes will be agree or not, but there will be a raise in Indonesia military budget. I mean, 0.8% in average for 25 years, it's already doesn't make sense. So I think Prabowo as a president, he will rise at least maybe to 1%. Not very high, because I think he is. I mean, in these days uh, we don't hear anything about Prabowo going to enhance the military capabilities, but we always hear about the makan siang program. So he is more concerned about the Indonesia human resource quality, which is very low. And so I don't think he will become, I mean, the TNI become very strong suddenly, because Prabowo is more concerned to Indonesia human resource development. But 0.8% is too low, I think, and it's already like 25 years. So it is makes sense that Indonesia going to have at least 1% of GDP for its defense budget.
Okay, I think we are running out of time already, Ibu and Pak Johannes. But perhaps both of you can address the issue of governance. I'm sure this will be debated quite considerably as the new presidency begins. What's your sense? Further reforms, better governance, or more regression? But Johannes?
Okay. Well, like I said, I mean, my presentation, it really depends on the optimistic versus the optimistic versus the pessimistic view of what will happen. I mean, like I said, Prabowo himself is very concerned about his future, about his legacy, like what he will leave in 5 years, and and for him, I think the easiest way to do is to cut to cut the corruption, to basically reform the civil service because it is because people all agree that they need reform. It is last the best way also to garner lots of popularity, brownie points from the voters, for those who think that the democracy is in decline. And more importantly, I mean, he can use it as punishment for his political, like what we see in the past. If you look at the history of Indonesian anti-corruption eradication programs, since I mean, everybody called to say about tebang pilih, like you pick and choose who you are going to throw to jail because of corruption, and it is actually a great political tool to keep your allies in line and your enemies disorganized. So I think at the Prabowo, I mean, we will see this kind of things going on. There will be like, I mean, there will be like in governance. I mean, look, maybe you can make an argument like he's abusing the institution further, like he's destroying the democracy further by weaponizing the anti-corruption. But at the same time, I mean, the intended effect is the same. Like people will be too afraid to do corruption because you can get the blackmail from them. So it is like perversely a net positive, in my opinion. So there will be like I think a lot of some reformation on it. But and then so I mean so that's my optimistic view on this basically. So Mr. You may say that he's pursuing this from the wrong reason, but at the end of the day, I mean you got a net positive. But of course, negatively, I mean he just listened to his impulses. I mean he will basically just further deteriorate democracy. But I don't think that will happen because I keep telling people usually. I mean, he may be insane, but he's not stupid. So, I mean, so that's my feeling, and hopefully I'm right in this case. I don't know. I mean, maybe
Thank
Edna
you,
will
Pak.
have a different.
Ibu Edna, your last comments, please.
Okay. I'm more in the pessimistic side. Firstly, I think because right now in Indonesia, the civil society is very weak, so there is no control from the civil society. Second, Prabowo has to distribute power between supporting parties, and distribute power mean distribute money. And then and third, this is the first time Gerindra will be on power. So it's going to be interesting because we do not have any reference on how they will control the government, especially because there are problem with numbers. So I don't know how many professional or how many people Gerindra will put in the government and how they will act. So Gerindra will also compete with Golkar, which is a very long term and sophisticated party in terms of fulfilling bureaucracy. So I don't see any strong opposition, even though PDIP already put themselves as the opposition, but not a frontal one. So in terms of governance, I am more in pessimistic position. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask something?
Yes, please go ahead.
I generally agree with what Edna said, but I think the election of Prabowo himself is kind of a blessing in disguise. I mean, in this sense, like it actually makes people mobilize now. I mean, 10 years under Joko Widodo, every time people want to criticize him, people are saying, "Oh no, my God, you are basically the kadrun. You are basically the anti moderation, you are the anti change. The crazy people who doesn't like reformation or whatever." And basically, Jokowi for the last 10 years has kind of like a Teflon quality. Like you cannot criticize him because he's this nice guy. He's the Jedi. He's the last hope, thing like that. But not under Prabowo. Basically, it is Darth Vader. It is Darth Vader in Istana Merdeka, and everybody already say, "Oh my God! I mean, you got the dark side of the force now ruling Indonesia." So people will be already mobilized. I mean, you already look like all the vitriol, all the uproar against both Joko and Prabowo, and I think this is quite healthy. And honest, and I hope I'm right. Okay, I mean, generally, I thought you already told me like I'm too pessimistic, but hopefully, this time I'm optimistic and right that this will kind of galvanize the civil society. This will force changes. This will make people actually far more concerned about the democracy, the part of democracy, about the political side, and people will react far more strongly. So because they think that this is far more this is a dangerous situation. But well, I'm hoping that will happen.
Thank you, Bapak. Thank you, Ibu. It's a really nice balanced ending to the webinar, and a very nice juxtaposition of images there as well for us to consider, as this is going to be a unique presidency by the look of it. And of course, it was run on a platform of continuity, but we can see that particularly through this webinar that there are a lot of new dimensions and new dynamics that this presidency will throw up, and we look forward to analyzing and assessing them in the year ahead. So it leaves me to thank Ibu Edna Caroline and Bapak Johannes Sulaiman for being so kind to spend the morning with us and to share these wonderful insights. We're still trying to discover what this new presidency would look like, but you've given us an interesting roadmap to try to make sense of what the possible outcomes may be going forward. And I thank you both for being with us and sharing all these marvelous insights. And thank you also to the audience for joining us. We should have quite a few more events coming up over the course of the year as we explore developments in Indonesia. So it leaves me now to thank Bapak Johannes and Ibu Edna for giving us a marvelous and insightful presentations this morning. Thank you very much.